experiential learning has we could talk about it broadly and philosophically. It has some roots that go back to John Dewey's notion of involving direct learning and learning from experience, learning by doing in one's educational endeavors. There's some very great pedagogical value to learning from experience. And indeed, there are useful frameworks, one being the Kolb experiential learning framework that helps educators think about how to structure experiential learning opportunities. So this is a very rich topic from a philosophical point of view. For today's conversation, we're really going to be focusing on the practical point of view. How do you help develop, create, and improve experiential learning for students in universities and colleges? And the way that we mean that really for this webinar is thinking about experiential learning as opportunities for students to learn outside of classroom experiences. How do we think about how students can learn in that way? And there are many benefits to this, not only the pedagogical benefits you get from that direct kind of engagement from experience. There are also opportunities for partnerships, because there are ways that internships, field work, relationships with other organizations through student work can really be developed by this kind of framework for experiential learning. Not to mention opportunities for career development, because as students are able to do learning experiences outside the classroom, they're able to make connections, learn about different fields, learn about different industries, and we'll have much more to say about that shortly. So the question that we're going to be engaging with together is, how do we establish experiential learning activities as formal parts of students' education? How do we integrate them in programs? How do we fit them with the curriculum? How do we provide oversight for them? How do we make them really high quality experiences?
And that's actually another example of how our model has shifted this year, in part in response to the pandemic. Our signature fieldwork term program is 6 weeks over the winter in January to mid-February. However, more and more students have sought and really requested to do fieldwork term in the summer, given that nationally 2/3 of summer opportunities are fully paid. Many of the more prestigious companies that are really targeted by some of our less networked students who are seeking upward social mobility are in the summer. And so given that, we have expanded our model to be year-round. So the winter is still the dominant fieldwork term, but many students complete in the summer. And in terms of campus employment, students hold a job or that is typically 8 to 16 hours over the course of the fall and spring terms. And that job, if it meets certain benchmarks that align with students' learning objectives, may count as one annual field experience.
Important. On the just kind of micro level of creating experiential activities, my mind goes back to my master's degree at Mankato State in experiential education with Jasper Hunt. We talked about not building sugar cube igloos. So that is basically an illustration of, like, just because your hands are moving and you're making something doesn't make it experiential. So if you ask a group of school children to learn about Arctic cultures or learn about indigenous peoples in the far north, by asking them to construct an igloo out of sugar cubes, are you really teaching them anything about those cultures? No, you're showing them how to stick sugar cubes together, right? They don't even melt, or it's not the same thing. So I remember that all the time, like, okay, is this activity or this assignment that I have just created a sugar cube igloo, or does it actually ask the student to apply some knowledge or practice in ways that that are real?